Good day, we are Group 10, and our topic is the global cities. For the first member who will be reporting is me. I'm Timothy Casimiro, and my part is the rise of the cities. Cities have existed for almost 9,000 years, while their domination is a comparatively recent occurrence. It is clear that cities have had a significant impact on human cultural evolution. The word civilization actually derives from the Latin word civis, that means a person living in a city. Despite the fact that the majority of people in on Earth still live in rural areas, cities consistently garner the greatest emphasis when writing histories of human achievements. Although the earliest cities resembled overgrown villages of 5,000 to 10,000 people more than modern cities. They performed many of the same functions as modern government: property rights, an extended division of labor, and a relatively stable market for the exchange of goods. The first cities are though thought to have developed in the fertile valley of the Tigris and Euphrates River. So the word civilization actually derived from the Latin word civis, which means a person living in a city. And cities, many cities existed almost more than 8,000 to 9,000 years earlier before. The first cities are thought to have developed in the fertile valley of the Tigris and Euphrates River. So the first cities that were made or built was in the fertile valley of the Tigris and Euphrates River. That's Cities expanded rapidly during empire. Although Greeks lived in the countryside at the time, the cities of Athens and Sparta were the centers of Greek civilization and are still known for their contributions to Western culture. So, although Greeks lived in the countryside at that time before, the cities of Athens and Sparta were once the center of Greek civilization because they are famous for their contributions to Western culture and many more. The sights and sounds of world famous cities like Hong Kong, Paris, and New York were simply inconceivable for the majority of human history. Our ancient forebears moved around as they sought migratory game or depleted the vegetation in small nomadic groups. Only a small portion of Earth's population lived in the little towns that marked the beginnings of civilization. In the Middle East around 12,000 years ago, as many people lived in the largest three or four cities today as there were then on the entire Earth. So before, only small portion of Earth's population are living in small towns um, that were marked as the beginning of civilization in the Middle East around 12,000 years ago. And there are as many people live in the largest three or four cities today as there were then on the entire Earth. So that means there are a lot of people living in there are as many people live in the largest city today as there were before on the entire Earth. Next. The following factors link to the rise of the cities. Agricultural improvement that reduce the number of workers needed in food production. So there are agricultural improvement that reduce the number of workers needed in food production because they made improvement about how can they productively productively product foods for everyone. Number two, stabilization of political and economic institutions which enhance safety and distribution of goods and services. So they stabilize the political and economic institutions that enhances the safety and distribution of goods and services. So that means everyone in the cities have safety and have distributed the goods and services evenly. Number three, improvements in transportation and communications, which enhance trade and social interaction among large number of people. So they improve transportation and communications. Like they build uh, wheels that can travel long period of time, boats to travel across seas. That enhances the trade and social interactions among number of people because it made it easier for them to trade and interact with one another. Number four, rise of industrial and post-industrial economies, which demand concentrated populations to provide labor and services. So there are rises of industrial and post-industrial economies that concentrated populations to provide labor and services. It means that they built the rise of industrial and post-industrial economies that is needing population to have labors and services. Next. So German sociologist Ferdinand Tönnies, 1855 to 1937, created a theoretical continuum to examine the difference between rural and urban living in the late 19th century. Two ideas he created are now permanent in terms in the vocabulary of sociology. So he Ferdinand Tönnies created a theoretical continuum that examines the difference between rural and the urban living before in the 19th century. Tönnies used the German word Gemeinschaft, which loosely translates to community, to describe a certain social structure in which members are bound together by kinship and tradition. A community is said to be in Gemeinschaft if there is informal social control, a straightforward distribution of labor, and a limited population. So, Tony's uses the word Gemeinschaft to describe a social structure in which members are bound together by kinship and tradition. So, the Gemeinschaft means community. So, the society on the opposite extreme, known as Gastelskap, is one with a sizable population and is defined by loose alliance, complicated system of work division, secondary relationship, and formal social supervision. So Thompson and Hickey, 2006. He claims that Gemeinschaft communities, according to Tony's 1961, as referenced by Thompson and Hickey, have a strong feeling of cohesiveness, common values, and determination to hard work. So, uh, that's the difference between rural and urban. As said, a community is said to be in Gemeinschaft if there is informal social control. So, uh, it has straightforward distribution of labor. So, it means if you're this laborer, then you'll be here to work and has only limited population. While the second one, the Gasoscaf, with a sizable population, then is defined by this alliance, which means it has formal social supervision that links the Gasoscaf community. It has strong cohesiveness, common values, and determination to work. Cities, by contrast, tend to be Gassel caste communities and more diverse in values, placing considerably less stress on shared objectives. Researchers look at distinction between rural communities and urban areas and how these discrepancies affected fundamental structures, social structures, institutions, and interactions. Tony's ideas provided a theoretical foundation for both urban and rural sociology in the United States. So, Tony's ideas, it provided theoretical foundation for both rural and urban sociology. So it means that the one he made, as said earlier, the theoretical foundation was um, describe the urban and rural sociology and their differences in the United States. So that's for me. And the next one for the patterns of urban development is Mr. Panoga.
Thank you, Mr. Casimiro. Naririnig po ba?
Yes po, rinig po, rinig.
Okay, I am John Ranier Panoga, and now let's talk about the urban development. First, we have the concentric zone model. Next po. Concentric zone model. According to sociologist Ernest Borges in 1925, the concentric ring model, also known as the Borges model, is one of the earliest theoretical models to explain urban social structures. Sa screen, makikita natin ang 6 na zones, which is, bali 5 lang po talaga yan. Ang factory zone is, sakop na po siya ng zone of transition. Sa zone 1, consider as the center business district. Ito po ay tinatawag na non-residential area. Ito ang pinakamalaking sentro ng model at sinasabing hindi pwedeng terhan. Dito nagaganap ang operasyon like office and retail kung saan pumupunta ang mga businessman para sa kanilang mga trabaho. Then pagpasok naman ng zone 2, which is the zone of transition, meron din itong industry at mababang quality ng pabahay. Dahil doon, marami ang naninirahan sa lugar na ito. Dahil na rin sa mura ang bayad. Dito makikita ang mga immigrants at mga dayuhan, usually para malapit sa factory at sa kanilang mga trabaho. Sa lugar na ito, sa zone na ito, sinasabing mabilis din ang pagbabago. Maraming mga pabrika na kung saan ay nagiging dahilan ng traffic at pollution. Zone 3, tinatawag namang working class zone. Dito, ang mga manggagawa makikita sa pabrika, mga welders, mekaniko at iba pang gawain na nangangailangan ng manual na paggawa. Pagpasok naman ng zone 4, ito ang residential zone. Ito ay residential para sa mga middle class at upper class. Then zone 5, kakaunti ang mga bayan ang mayroon dito sa lugar na to. Pinipiling tirahan upang makaiwas sa mga di kanais-nais na pangyayari sa lungsod like krimen, droga at iba pa. Next po. We have the sector model. Sector model, also known as Hoyt model, is model of urban land use proposed in 1939 by land of economist Homer Hoyt. It is modification of the concentric zone model of city development. Then the benefits of the application of this model includes the fact it allows for an outward progression of growth. As with all simple models such as complex phenomena, its validity is limited. This model is also the same with the first one, the concentric zone model. So let's proceed to the next slide. The third patterns or model of urban development is the multiple nuclei model. This is said to be model of 1945 by Harris and Edward Ullman is based on argument that the city have multiple growth points or nuclei around which growth take place. This model was given in an article by them, The Nature of Cities. This is one of the widely adopted models which was applicable to modern cities unlike other models studied under settlement geography. We have the central business district, wholesale light manufacturing, outlying business district, low-class residential, medium-class residential, high-class residential, residential suburb, heavy manufacturing, and industrial suburb. Sa part naman na to, sinasabing ito ay innovation mula sa mga naunang model. Kumpara sa concentric model at sector model, mas marami na mga independent points at iyon ay lumalago or umuunlad sa iba't ibang kaparaanan. Base din dito sa mga ideya na nabasa ko, dito lumalawak ang paggalaw o mga transaksyon ng mga tao dulot ng pagkakaroon ng sariling sasakyan. Sinasabing ang bawat nuclei ay may function sa iba't ibang aspeto katulad ng sa industriya, edukasyon, pabahay at iba pa. Habang lumalaki o mas nagiging effective, mas nai-impluwensyahan nito ang iba pang mga aspeto. Katulad na lamang halimbawa ng sa edukasyon at negosyo. Na kung saan ay sa isang paaralan o kolehiyo ay may kalapit na bookstore na kung saan ay sila ang maaari mag-supply ng mga aklat na pangangailangan ng school na ito. Next po. Now, let's talk about metropolis, megapolis, and the suburbs. Kapag sinabi po natin metropolis, it is the area includes or core city as well as nearby communities making it larger settlement of people than just a city. Example po nito ay New York City has population of over 17 million and includes people who live in cities, 5 boroughs, Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, and the Westchester County, and even Connecticut and New Jersey. Next slide. Metropolis. Area includes a core city as well as a nearby communities, making it larger settlement of people than just a city. Example, Metropolitan Manila, which includes cities of Manila, Quezon, Pasay, Caloocan, Parañaque, Mandaluyong, Pasig, Las Piñas, San Juan, Marikina, Valenzuela, Navotas, Malabon, Taguig, Muntinlupa, Makati, and Municipality of Pateros. Next po. Megapolis. When we say megapolis, it consists of 2 or more major metropolitan areas linked politically, economically, socially, and geographically. Examples, in United States, along the eastern seaboard, a chain of hundreds of cities and suburbs. Florida is almost a one continuous city from Jacksonville through Tampa to Miami. Next po. That's all for my parts, and now let's talk about the problems in cities to be reported by Mr. Ken.
Maraming salamat sa iyong report. Manoga. The greatest problem facing major cities in generating enough revenue to provide adequate services and protection for their residents. Most major cities raise taxes to compensate for shrinking revenues, but this in turn encourage more residents and business to flee the city and locate in surrounding suburb area. Halimbawa na lang nito ay ang Google. Dati, ang headquarters nila ay nasa San Francisco, California. Pero dahil sa pagtaas ng tax doon, ay lumipat sila ng ibang lugar kung saan mababa ang babayaran nilang tax. Urban decay hits the central city as major business move from the downtown area to more profitable suburban location. All buildings subsequently either remain vacant and deteriorate or become multiple unit slum housing. Low rent hotels, adult bookstore, and theaters, center for drug distribution, other criminal activities, and repositories for the urban homeless. Yung urban decay naman, halimbawa nito ay ang vandalism, maraming basura, o maraming criminal activities na nangyayari sa lugar. Kaya dahil dito ang mga major business ay lumilipat sa ibang suburban location tulad na lang ng Cebu o Davao kung magulo sa Manila. Next slide po. The central cities have increasingly become the domicile of the poor. Although many of the poor resident in rural areas, the proportion of urban poor increased between 1980 and 1990. Much urban poverty is a result of growing urban underclass of poorly educated and unskilled minorities who lack the skill and education to make the transition from an industrial to a service economy. Nangyayari pa rin ito sa panahon ngayon dahil sa mga telenovela na pag pumunta ang taga-province sa Metro Manila ay yayaman na agad sila, makakahanap ng poging mayaman, mga ganon. Pero pagdating nila dito ay wala silang madadatnan na trabaho dahil sa kakulangan nila ng skill at edukasyon. Kaya nai-stuck sila dito at dumadami ang mga tao sa Metro Manila at nakaka-classified sila as mahirap. Urban problems continue to exist as chronic and unemployment, homeless, violent crimes, alcohol and drug abuse, suicide and other forms of deviance. Sinasabi dito na ang mga problema sa lungsod ay patuloy pa ring umiiral, gaya ng mga sakit, kawalan ng trabaho, kahirapan, krimen, abuso sa alkohol at droga, pagpapakamatay at iba pang uring pagkakalayo sa tamang landas. Next slide. Inner city decay. Even if some city government in global city attempt to revitalize central cities by raising dilapidated buildings and replacing them with modern high-rise office building, apartment complexes, and condominiums, they could not contain the proliferation of street people, drug dealers, and prostitutes who do their illegal trades, especially during nighttime. Halimbawa lang nito nung panahon ni Mayor Isko Moreno sa Manila, kahit anong paganda niya sa city, marami pa ring drug addict sa daan, mga ganon. Sa Quezon City naman, kahit anong gawin ni Mayor Jerry na pagpapaganda sa lungsod niya, marami pa ring prostitute doon sa Quezon City. Ayun lamang po, maraming salamat. At ang susunod na magre-report sa akin ay si Lemuel Nalica.
What's up? SG.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Limbal M. Nalica reporting for Human Ecology and Environmental Concern in Global Cities. Next slide, please. The ecological perspective provides a theoretical model for analyzing the interdependence between human beings and the physical environment. In the case of human society, two of the most important ecological factors are growth in population and our ability to alter the environment through technology. Human ecology and environmental concern in global cities are overpopulation, depletion of natural resources, and pollution, water, air, and land. Overpopulation as a human population grow, we alter our physical environment to obtain sufficient food and shelter. Most of the global cities were once covered with trees, grasses, flowers, marshes, and streams. They have been covered with asphalt, concrete, steel, wood, and glass to build cities. Tulad nga ng sabi dito, ang dati nating kapaligiran ay binabalot ng mga kulay green na tulad ng puno at iba pang natural na resources. Pero sa pagdami ng tao, sa ating mundong ginagalawan ay nababalot na ito ng mga konkreto, mga building, at dahil ang mundong ating ginagalawan ay umuunlad na. Overpopulation threatens to bring about widespread starvation and avalanche of death. As population increase in urban areas expand, farmers are forced onto marginal lands. Deforestation can result in overcultivation and soil erosion. Overpopulation also demand woods, petroleum, and other fossil fuels, electricity, water, and other scarce commodities. Tulad ng bansang India, China, at marami pang iba, ito ay mga bansang overpopulated na dahil sa kawalan nila ng edukasyon kung paano kontrolin ang kanilang mga luho sa buhay, na nagdudulot ito ng pagbubuntis ng mga kabataan na halos walang alam kung paano tumakbo ang buhay sa mundo. Next slide, please. Depletion of natural resources. Forest land around the globe is being destroyed at a rate of an hectare every second, and tropical forests are shrinking by 11 million hectares, over 27 million hectares each year by Brown, LR, 1988, Gore, 1982. Ito yung mga research na ginawa ng mga tao para sa mga depletion of natural resources. Particularly disturbing in the fact that tropical forests, which cover only 7% of the Earth's surface, may house as much as 80% of the planet species. Sa sobrang dami ng puno na naputol dahil nga sa pag-innovate ng ating mundo, maraming naapektuhan na kagubatan, tirahan ng mga species na kailangan nila mabuhay. Pero dahil sa ating mga tao, maraming mga puno dito ang itinumba para lang makapagpatayo tayo ng mga bahay, building. Kaya sa sobrang taas ng depletion of natural resources. Next slide, please. Thank you. Deforestation is a major cause of soil erosion, desertification in many parts of the world. In North America, deforestation is resulting from massive logging operation to provide lumber for housing, and for paper in tropical rainforest. Land is being cleared for crops and animals. As overpopulation and use of agricultural irrigation increase, so that the demand for fresh water, some natural aquifers are being drained at a rate of dealer than are being replaced. By I.C. Wilson, 2005, Adrian Rodman, 2007. The species are becoming extinct at a rate that is 1,000 times greater than the pace of that prevailed in prehistory. By Linden, 1989, Diamond, 1990. Skeptics are argue that environmentalists are exaggerating the depletion of natural resources and the extinction of species. By Julian Simon, 1993, contended that life on Earth is getting better, not worse, and that so many so-called finite natural resources could be replenished. Tulad ka na sabi ko kanina, ito yung mga pag-aaral kung saan dahil sa overpopulate ng ating mundong ginagalawan ay maraming puno ang napuputol para makagawa ng mga bahay, at marami namang din puno ang napuputol na tinitira ng mga crops and animals na nagsasani ng pagka-instinct ng mga hayop na ito. Next slide, please. Pollution, water, air, and land. Urbanization creates a heavy concentration of human waste. Pollution is now affecting almost every global city worldwide. The three major sources of water pollution are domestic wastewater, industrial charges, and agricultural runoff. Each year of millions of gallons of petroleum, industrial chemicals, and other toxic substances are dumped into the world ocean. One of the most alarming and highly publicized disaster occurred in 1989 when the Exxon Valdez oil tanker ran around on an Alaskan island. The cities of Tokyo, Los Angeles, and Mexico are almost permanently enveloped in a haze of smog. Other major global cities around the world suffer from similar problems. Dahil nga sa pandemic noong 2020, ang pollution ng tubig, hangin at sa land ay nabawasan. Tulad ng paghinto or dahil hindi tayo lumalabas sa bawat bahay natin. Nakita natin ang mga bundok or lumabas uli di tulad nung tayo ay nasa labas, maraming usok na sasakyan. Kaya dapat talaga mag-pandemic. Next slide, please. Pollutants contain acid that help from acid rain, which is altering the chemistry of stream, rivers, and lakes, and has caused irreparable damage to crops and forests. The threat of massive nuclear disaster was realized in 1986 when Chernobyl nuclear plant in Ukraine experienced a core meltdown, resulting in the evacuation of the most of its nuclear reactors. At one time, radioactive waste was sealed in lead containers and dumped miles out into the ocean. But nature reminded people that the globe is an ecosystem and some of the conister drifted ashore. Dahil nga tayo ay overpopulated na, marami tayong maraming depletion of natural resources and pollution, water, air, and land ang nababalot sa ating mundo. So, dumating ang pandemic, marami tayong bagay na na-realize tulad ng mga pollution sa ating kapaligiran. Dahil nga nagka-pandemic, hindi tayo makalabas ng bahay. At ang ating kapaligiran naman ay umuunlad. Tulad ng mga bundok ay natatanaw na natin di tulad dati na dahil sa usok ng mga kotse at mga planta sa ating mundo. For the next reporter, the world global cities is to be reported by JB Romeo. Thank you so much. That's all for my report. Iangas. Iya. Next slide.
Narinig ba ako?
Rinig.
World Global Cities. Global Cities Report 70 Vision testify to the continued strength of many of the world's largest cities, who make global impact, including their potential, their capacity to retain global capital, people, and ideas. In the coming years, as described as the report, cities are ecosystem for business and innovation. The strength of an urban center network of businesses, the talent of its citizenry, the stability of political institutions, and the creative of cultural organizations all contribute to an environment in which existing business flourish and new companies are born. So, Global City Index, rank, and score. So, sa unang group na to, makikita natin na yung top 10 ng 2016 is top 10 pa din ng 2017. Ang pinagkaiba lang nila is Naunahan ng London yung New York sa rank 1 in 2017. Naunahan nila yung New York sa pamamagitan ng pag-improve nila ng information exchange at sa panatili nilang bangatan ng London sa mga business activity and political engagement. Next is Global Cities Outlook rank and score. So sa Global Cities Outlook and scores is napanatili ng San Francisco ang pagiging number 1 sa 2016 to 2017. Nanatili ang San Francisco sa unang pwesto dahil sa patuloy na paglakas ng domain nila at patuloy na dumadagdag ang mga patents at business incubators at sa mga nakalipas na dalawang taon ay nagawa ng Paris na maging top 3 sa Global City Outlook at ngayon kinakalaban na ng Paris ang New York and San Francisco. Next is the Global Elite. Global Elite are the cities that rank in the top 25 of both Index and Outlook. These cities are not only performing well but also positioned for continued growth and global influence in the future. For the year 2016 and 2017, cities qualify with the New York City, London, and Paris in the top 1 in both rankings. So, sa Global Elite, nasa dito yung top 25 ng both Index and Outlook. Sa Amerika is nandun yung Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Washington DC, Toronto, Boston, and San Francisco. EMEA, which means Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Nandun naman yung London, Paris, Berlin, Moscow, and Amsterdam. And sa Asia Pacific naman is Tokyo, Singapore, Melbourne, and Sydney. Yung orange na nakashade dyan sa mga bansa na yan, nagre-represent lang yan na yung mga bansa na yan is nasa top 10 ng both Index and Outlook. The Global Cities Index Leader. The Index and Outlook are based on composite scores that include a wide range of metrics. A close look at ranking for each indicator reveals that even the most elite metropolitan area facing significant competition from cities in all major regions. Ang index at outlook ay nakabase sa composite scores that include the wide range metrics. At ang nasa top ng mga bansa ng Index 27 metrics ay ginamit upang mabuo ang theoretical perfect city. At ang mga leaders ng mga 13 indicators of the outlook ay ginamit upang mabuo ang past city. Naging resulta nito ay ang mga sama-sama ng mga cities across all major worlds and region and developed. Kaya naman, ang perfect city ay binubuo ng 17 na mga lungsod at ang fastest ay binubuo naman ng mga 29 na lungsod. So makikita natin dito na ang mga nangunguna sa dimension of the index is pagdating sa business activity is New York, human capital is New York, information exchange is Paris, cultural experience is London, and political engagement is Washington DC. At pagdating naman sa 27 index matrix, ay ang London ang nangunguna sapagkat nakakuha ng London ang 6 spots sa mga metrics na ito at sumusunod naman ang New York City at Brussels na may nakuhang 4 na spot. At pagdating naman sa 13 metric of outlook ay nakakuha ng Sydney at Melbourne ang tatlong metrics. Ang tatlo sa mga metrics na ito. Four models differentiate leading startup ecosystem cities. Number one is economic powerhouse. Number two is network centers. Three is industry leaders. And four is regional hub. Number one, economic powerhouse. Economic powerhouse with high levels of business activity. These cities are established hubs for trades and finance and offer easy access to capital and investors. First, global cities drive the global economy. They are economic powerhouse with head office, business services, legal and consulting expertise, exchange banks, and global corporations. So, sample na lang nito ay sa San Paulo. Ang San Paulo ay nangunguna pagdating sa business activity sa Latin America. Pangalawa ay ang Beijing naman sa Asia Pacific at nangunguna din ang Beijing sa Fortune 500 companies. At ang pinakauli ay ang Dubai. At ang Dubai naman nangunguna pagdating sa mga activity sa Middle East. Next is network centers. Network centers distinguished by strong human capital and significant business activity for information exchange. These cities typically have universities that produce a talent citizenry and maintain close ties with the city's large company. Second, they drive connectivity major airports and solid transit infrastructure made global cities accessible that help attract tourists who in Chicago preserve our being selfie industry and keep Navy fear in business. So dito naman, example nito ay ang Los Angeles, Toronto at Chicago. Ang mga halimbawa na may ganitong startup ecosystem. Ang tatlong ito ay mayroong strong universities and high caliber corporation na nangunguna sa mga school at para sa mga negosyante. Chicago ay nakapagtayo ng 500 Fortune companies, habang Los Angeles naman ay mayroong malaking tech company at ang huli ay ang Toronto sa Canada Toronto na Canada's financial center at host ng mga major US tech companies. Next is industry leaders. Industry leaders strongest in human capital. These cities have a dominant business sector that often develop as a result of robust university and truly trained professional in the particular industry. Global cities unlock knowledge through top educational institutions, consulate think tanks, and international conference with intern device political engagement. So, halimbawa nito ay ang Boston na nakapokus sa biotech at nabibilang sa may mga pinakamahusay na universidad sa bansa. At ang pangalawa ay ang Montreal na may kilala din bilang sa larangan ng robotics program at ang robotics program at dalubhasa din pala sila sa artificial intelligence o kilala bilang AI. Next is regional hubs. Regional hubs with high levels of information exchange. These cities are often in countries with some of the most stable governments and economies in the region and are typically cultural centers in countries with younger, more liberal population. Many of these governments fund since accelerators or have grants to attract multinational companies. Global cities are led by people who think globally and understand the importance of connecting local politics to world politics. Sometimes may solve problems that national leaders can. Halimbawa nito ay Tel Aviv na isa sa mayroong pinakamataas na startup densities sa mundo at mayroong 300 multinational R&D centers at Pangalawa ay ang Berlin na isa din sa umuusbong na regional hub at ang pinakauli ay ang Bangalore na naging sentro ng mga young tech workers sa India na may mga matagumpay na entrepreneurial stories sa iba't ibang industriya mula sa e-commerce hanggang sa healthcare. So, cities that want cultivate startup ecosystem and encourage entrepreneurial success can choose from forces ecosystem models to find the pathway the best capitals on their strengths. Businesses can also use the ecosystem model to make strategic decisions about their operation and identify economically stable, dynamic metropolitan area with high quality talent for investment and growth. That's all. Thank you.